Welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Medha Kare. I am visiting faculty at Tata Institute of Social Sciences. We are going to look at gender and natural resources. This is part of the paper on environment and society. In this topic, we are trying to understand how gender roles and natural resources are related to each other. We are going to look at how men and women relate with natural resources, what their relationships are, and how women are engaged in conservation of biodiversity. We are also going to see how climate change and different natural disasters affect women, what kind of impact does it have on their livelihoods, and what can be done for all development programs. This topic will help us understand the realities of women's lives and plan programs which are sustainable and help us conserve biodiversity. So let us see what kind of people and what amount of people are dependent on natural resources. It is estimated that in developing nations, more than 1.3 billion people are dependent on natural resources for their livelihood. What do we mean by this? It means that communities which are into subsistence farming, fishing, hunting and gathering, and agricultural labor work are dependent on usable land, water, plant, and animal species for their livelihood. So it is estimated that these number of people, which is 1.3 billion people, are dependent for their livelihood on natural resources. So it is true that the condition of natural resources is very crucial in maintaining a sustainable livelihood for these people. So you can see that the agricultural livelihoods of poor rural men and women depends on the condition of natural resources. This is particularly true with those people living on fragile lands. Very often when we see people, it is meant it's men and women. But is it same for men and women? Do you think that men and women have same relationship with natural resources? It's not true. Whenever we go to a countryside, we see women doing different chores than men do. If we take a stroll in the farm, we see women bending on their backwards and doing so many back-breaking work. They are collecting fuel, they are collecting fodder, they are bringing in water for household use and for cattle, and they are doing so many things that men are not doing. Men are doing different tasks in farming and different tasks in the rearing of cattle. So there is a difference in the roles that are played by men and women. It's not about just work roles, but there are different kinds of roles and expectations that women and men have to cater to. These are called gender roles. So what do gender roles do? Gender roles determine how we perform our tasks. As men or as women, what kind of task do we perform? What is the kind of work that I do? Do I go out of the house and do the work, or do I do the household chores? Do I have access to education? Do I have access to resources? All this is determined by gender roles. It also determines if we have access to incomes, access to leisure, access to control over property, and also access to information or newer technologies. Gender roles determine how do we relate with these institutions and these institutions of resources as well. So gender roles also affect the way in which we use resources or we relate with natural resources. In most cultures, it is seen women have multiple tasks and responsibilities. They are related to farming, they are related to household work, they are related to different occupations such as fishing, hunting and gathering. Men and women share different responsibilities. And many of the tedious work and tedious tasks are that which are done by women. But if we look at control over resources or rights over resources, we find that they hardly have legal or accepted rights. They hardly have technical skills and market information. So if we look at access to resources, we see that women have less access to education, information, technical knowledge and market information. We also see that the basic requirements for any household, which are fuel, food and water, is the responsibility of women and the younger girls. So the household tasks that are done by women and girls, which are important for that family to keep going are on the shoulders of women and girls. But they are the last ones to share any rights over those resources or that property. Beyond this, there are various different ways in which men and women relate to nature or use natural resources. All across nations, it is seen that men use natural resources in a particular manner and women do it differently. Some of the examples I will share with you. It is seen that men are involved more in commercial logging, agriculture and fishing, where women are more into subsistence farming. Subsistence farming is kind of farming which provides for your family, which provides enough crop for your family, including pulses and crops and paddy, but it is not for sale or it is not for cash income. On the other hand, men focus more on market-oriented or cash crops such as sugarcane, cotton or fruit orchards, while women prefer doing smaller crops, minor crops such as millets and vegetable gardens, which provide nutrition for their family. In the work related to farming, men are in charge of clearing and leveling land and later on in harvesting the crop, while women are doing planting and tending of crops and other tedious work like weeding and winnowing. In Northeast India, if we look at the Jhum cultivation, it is men who clear land, but all other major decisions like which crops to plant, which variety of seed to use, harvesting, storage and sale of crops is all handled by women. If we see the water as resource, irrigation water and irrigation system is accessible to men. Women hardly have any access for irrigation for their vegetable gardens or subsistence crops. In the livestock management, it is men who take care of cattle and larger animals, while women take care of smaller animals such as goat and sheep and poultry. So we see that there is a slight difference in the way in which men use natural resources and women use natural resources. It's also linked to what kind of incomes you get, what kind of investments you put and what kind of benefits you get out of these operations. So men are involved in operations that are closely linked to sale of the crop and earning and income, while women are involved in occupations in farming and in use of natural resources which provide for themselves and their families. In this situation all over, there is one important question that we need to ask. We see women working everywhere. We see them in farms, we see them in coastal areas doing fishing, we see them in hilly areas where they are doing farming, they are doing vegetable gardens, they are collecting produce from forest. We see them using these resources for their household purpose. But where do they stand in terms of rights? If we see rights over resources, we see that women hardly have any ownership rights over resources and they are much lower in comparison with men. In most social systems, very few ownership rights to women in comparison with men. Even if they have any rights, in some places we find women having rights over the land. These are called, they have de facto rights, which means the rights have come to them because factually, in reality, they are there, they are using that resource. But they are factual rights, they are not legal rights as men have. Men have de jure rights, which means they are accepted legally and they are legal rights that they hold. They are ownership rights, they are actual ownership rights. Women hardly possess de facto de jure rights. Women often have use rights, and these use rights are often mediated by their relationship with women. So what kind of relationship you have with the man of the household determines whether you get any share in land, any share in the household or your property. So even if you have land in your family, what kind of land are you going to get, how much of it you are going to get is determined by your relationship with the man of the house. So it affects the rights of those who are single, unmarried or widowed. So we find that single women are mostly having no rights over any property in their natal or marital family. So the gender role that they play very crucially determines whether they own any land or any property in their name. This is true across nations It may differ from community to community, but universally it is seen that it is women's rights are determined by their relationship with the men of the household. So what happens to the poor women? They have to depend on common property resources. Because they lack any secure land tenure for their basic needs of food, fuel, fodder and water, they have to depend on grasslands. They have to depend on common property resources such as water and available land for sustaining their livelihood. If we see what kind of impact does it have on the gender roles, we see that if there is a degradation of environment, if there is degradation of natural resources, it affects men and women differently. In case of degradation of forests, for that matter, it increases women's time for household chores. It increases their labor-intensive tasks. If there is reduction in crops or fish or forest produce, it increases food insecurity of the households. And whenever there is less food, we know that it is the woman who eats at the last. It is the woman who skips meals. So whenever there is food crisis, it directly affects women's health and nutrition levels, because women forego their food and they see to it that their family eats first and they make do with whatever is available. So the gender role of a woman of being the caretaker of the house also pushes her to this crisis and also pushes her on the brink of starvation. Degradation of natural resources also alters gender responsibilities. So sometimes when there is degradation of natural resource in the locality, in your community, the gender relations also change and the household responsibilities are also changing, because women have to take on different kind of responsibilities because of change in the environment. If we see what kind of impact does it have on the livelihood options of men and women, there is a difference. Whenever there is degradation of natural resource or common property resource, there is impact on men's livelihood strategies and women's livelihood strategies. Sometimes it pushes men for migration. Sometimes it is also seen that women also go out in search of work, because either they have lost their right over forest or they have lost their rights over the common property resource that was available in the village, but it leads men and women going out of the village in search of work. But this is not universal. It depends on what kind of class and caste you come from, ethnicity, your background and your geographical location. So the impact that it has on your livelihood strategies is determined by age, ethnicity, your social political background and where you come from. In case of migration, men go out for work, in search of work. In that case, it is women who take on their traditional roles. They take care of the household, they look after every needs, and also they are continuing to do what they were going to do. It affects their health and it affects the time that they put in for work. In spite of this, they don't have much access to the technological, social and other support that is required. In case where women are migrating for work, they end up in precarious situations either in towns or either in metro cities, where there is lack of support and also increased violence. So degradation of natural resources in your own community or in your own surrounding also pushes women in these precarious situations. Poor women in urban areas also face this crisis. Sometimes what happens when we talk about natural resources, we feel it's all about rural and tribal women, but it is not true. Natural resources are required even by urban people and urban women. The crisis is much more with poor urban women. To cook for your family, to cook food, to provide for your family, you need fuel wood. And in urban areas, the crisis of getting enough fuel wood, enough fuel for your family is getting worse day and day. So we have seen women carrying headloads of wood even in metro towns and metro cities like Pune and Mumbai. Why is this happening? Because they don't have enough access, they don't have easy access to any kind of fuel to cook for their families. Crisis of drinking water and other available resources is also looming large. If we see the mobile communities, which are pastoral and nomadic communities, in that women share all the responsibilities of the household. They are involved in the movement of the family from one place to the other. They are involved in the care of the livestock, and they are involved in all the other chores that are involved when they are out. They are out on their way. This has effect on their health. They suffer from ill health, and they are more often suffering from non-assisted childbirth and many other ailments. They suffer greatly if there is degradation of natural resources and grazing lands in their native towns, native villages. So up till now, we have looked at the different roles that are played by women and how they relate with natural resources. We have seen how men use natural resources and how women do it. We have seen when there is a degradation of resource, how does it affect men and how does it affect women. We've also seen that different communities, and especially women in those different communities, suffer differently and are pushed to a brink when there is loss of common property resource or degradation of natural resource. We have also seen that women play a very crucial and important role in conservation of nature. They have been there, they have been nurturing, and they have been taking care of natural resources so far. We have seen communities who have been having very good practices which have resulted in regeneration of forests. They have taken care of their forests, they have taken care of their backyard gardens, and actually they have taken care of farming. So this role of women in conservation of nature and conservation of diversity which is there around us is very crucial. Therefore, the focus now has been on women's role in biodiversity conservation. So now let us look into what kind of role women play into this. So what is biodiversity conservation? It means that there are different processes in which the diversity that is found around us is preserved and is conserved. Women play a very crucial role in this because they are regularly involved in selection, improvement, and adaptation of local plant varieties. They have been doing this as part of their work, as part of their daily lives. They are also managing seeds, they are exchanging seeds with each other, they are storing good seeds, and they are selecting seeds. So women have been playing this role for long. They are primary collectors of wild fruits and wild forest produce, and it is very important part of micronutrients in their diets. If we look at the Kung women of Kalahari deserts in Africa, we see that the kind of food they collect, gums, berries, fruits and tubers, 60% of their calorie intake comes from these collected items that women bring in. In many villages and in many tribal communities, women have always kept backyard gardens or kitchen gardens. They have grown traditional varieties of vegetables, herbs and spices selected for their nutritious medicinal and culinary advantages. This knowledge has been passed by women from one generation to other, and they have played this role in conservation of diversity. Their local knowledge about surrounding biodiversity is acquired while doing daily activities such as farming or cooking. In Wayanad district of Kerala, it was seen that the tribal women knew more than 102 wild vegetables in the forest. This knowledge was acquired because they have been visiting the forest, they have been working in the forest, and forest was part of their lives. So the use of wild vegetables has been there traditionally in many hilly communities and forest communities. Women are also known to expand the genetical or widen the genetic base by their innovative practices of farming or cropping. In Koli Hills, women farmers mix two kinds of millets, Italian millet and little millet, in a single field or in a mixed cropping system. By doing this, they are widening the genetic base of the crop. So these kind of innovative techniques used by women are very crucial in conserving biodiversity and in maintaining the different kinds of species of seeds and plants and different kinds of millets that are in use and that are not lost because women have preserved them. So this role of women in conservation of biodiversity is very crucial and needs to be underlined. There are various programs in India which have used this knowledge that women possess for expanding conservation of biodiversity. They have tried to engage with women so that they are involved in preserving these varieties of plants and also making use of it. Here are some examples of organizations in India. Deccan Development Society is an organization that works in semi-arid areas of South India. It works majorly in Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh. They have a very good program called Community Gene Program. Through this program, they encourage women to plant traditional varieties of range of nutritious millets such as foxtail millet, pearl millet, and women are encouraged to use these millets in their diet. It has got two advantages. One thing is the plantation is done on marginal lands. By planting these millets, the productivity of these lands increases, and on the other hand, because these traditional varieties are nutritious, the nutritional level of households is on rise. So it helps in both ways. The local knowledge and the traditional knowledge that women possess, because it is the women who have been farming this kind of crop. Usually women are into cropping of millets and not the men. So women's knowledge in this kind of cropping has been used by organizations like Deccan Development Society. Another example is from Nagaland. The Nagaland Environmental Protection and Economic Development Project also encouraged women through planting multi-purpose crops. What it did was it helped in improving soil and also helped in rising incomes at the household level. If we see the example of Nilgiri Hills, we see what kind of work the Keystone Foundation has done. What it did was it encouraged women who were collecting non-timber forest produce such as bee wax, gooseberries, and add value to them. Women prepared many products of these forest produce. They worked with the village committees and created produces that could be sold in the market. They gained and the incomes were increased of these women. We also see that some other organizations like Vanastri in Malanad, Karnataka is dedicated to promoting forest garden biodiversity and small scale food systems through the conservation of traditional seeds and tubers. Vanastri has many produces and markets many food products. It also markets traditional seeds of fruits and vegetables for home gardens. This way, they have been able to use women's knowledge and women's expertise in selection of seeds, preservation of seeds, and their ability to make food products and market them at reasonable prices. They have been able to increase household incomes and also nutritional levels of women. So women's knowledge, if it gets recognition and value, is of tremendous use at one level for conservation of biodiversity and at another level for nutrition of themselves and their household. This knowledge is not just locally recognized, but it also got recognition at international level. The Convention on Biological Diversity recognizes the vital role that women play in the conservation and sustainable use of biological diversity. It is a very important international recognition that women have. The convention also affirms the need for full participation of women at all levels of policy making and implementation of biological diversity conservation. It goes a further step by including a specific framework for the participation of indigenous women. Whenever we see the communities across India are so varied and so diverse that the kind of knowledge they possess is also that diverse. The women involved in cropping, women involved in villages have different kinds of knowledge about seeds than those women working in hilly areas. The tribal women living in forests have different knowledge of wild vegetables and forest produce than those living on the coasts. The fisher women possess different kind of knowledge than those working with pastoral communities. So if we see the kind of knowledge women possess, it really is a great treasure that needs to be preserved and sustained. When we talk about natural resources, we have to talk about climate change. The change in climate and weather in recent years has been a major topic of study. It is seen that the use of biofuels such as wood, agriculture waste and dried animal manure are a significant source of pollution in form of soot. Contribution of soot to climate change is small as compared to the fossil fuels, but it has significant effect on health of women who are exposed to it while cooking in rural and urban kitchens. Because women usually prepare food, their decisions about cooking fuels and efficiency can definitely reduce carbon emissions. So this aspect is very important and it was taken up for consideration by different organizations across the country. Here is one example from Maharashtra. Bhagirath Gram Vikas Pratishthan is an NGO based in the southern district of Sindhudurg in Maharashtra. Bhagirath Vikas Pratishthan decided to do something about these emissions. So they developed a program. They created farmers groups who were working with dairy animals, and they supported these farmers with installation of biogas plants, poultry farming and organic vegetable cultivation. Women were trained to use biogas slurry as fertilizers for vegetable gardens, crops and backyard poultry. Bioslurry is considered to be an excellent fertilizer and it is much better than the chemical fertilizers that are right now in use. The slurry is enriched with the poultry excreta. It was seen that there was almost 15 to 20% increase in the yield when the slurry was used in place of chemical fertilizers. The training that women got was useful for them in using this product in their vegetable gardens and also in their farms. The project successfully converged with the government schemes, mobilizing insurance for cattle and also subsidy available for biogas. Bhagirath Pratishthan showed to us how a sustainable program which involves women and which involves local community can give results and can result in a better farming system, no to chemical fertilizers and a sustainable way of using biogas. If we look at what Women for Sustainable Development, an NGO based in Gudibanda in Karnataka did, that is also interesting to see. This organization promoted local women and men in planting mango, tamarind and jackfruit tree orchards. There were two aims. One was the harvest of fruit and other was carbon sequestration. The project supported women's participation in decision-making processes of the project. It also took into account women's time and cultural constraints when establishing public forums. Many times it happens that there are good programs designed for development of women, but if you don't take into account cultural aspects of women's lives, sometimes women are not able to participate in the meetings, participate in the decision making because they are just not allowed to go outside the house or participate in public forums. But Women for Sustainable Development made sure that women came to the meetings and took decisions and participated at all levels. They also innovated. The project set up a prototype carbon marketing facility to sell the certified emission reduction of the global environment services that the participants, poor rural men and women, benefited from. So these two projects showed to us that if we work along with the community with participation of women, we can also respond to climate change conditions and also work out programs which effectively reduce carbon emissions at local levels and also equip men and women to take care of their biodiversity and increase outputs from it. Along with climate change, we also have to see what happens when there are natural disasters. Many countries and many nations have been facing different kinds of disasters in recent times. The hurricanes, the tsunamis, the earthquakes and volcanoes have devastating effects on the local communities. It is seen that the effects of any disaster are different for men and women. If we see the outcomes, it is studied and it is seen, it is observed that women are more likely to die or to be injured when disaster unfolds. Additionally, women do not receive timely warnings or other information about hazards and risks. Many a times, it also happens that the mobility restrictions, dress codes or cultural norms restrict women from seeking help or getting out in time. For example, in 1991 cyclone in Bangladesh, disproportionate number of women died. The studies of the cyclone show that women could not get out of the house because of the mobility restrictions from the household. In the tsunami in Sri Lanka, more women than men died. Why did this happen? because most of them didn't know how to swim or climb trees. Though these look as simple functions, at the time of disasters, these are crucial and life-saving activities that every individual needs to know. But the cultural norms and the gendered expectations do not let young girls and women learn these techniques, which are handy in terms of disasters. When the disaster is over, even the after effects are faced more by women than men. The existing gender-based equalities result in less food intake in women even post-disaster. Women are slower to recover from natural disasters. Their limited participation restricts their engagement in political decisions and increase their vulnerabilities. Hardly any women are able to advocate with the governments on what kind of support do they need, what kind of structures do they want for themselves. Therefore, their voices are not heard at the government level. It often happens that the relief workers who are working in the disaster-struck areas look at women as victims rather than leaders. They don't take their expertise in mind. They don't discuss with them what kind of programs can be built, and thus women are left behind in all these relief programs. They are not looked at as agents of change, and they are looked at mere followers of the household or followers of men. This results in adverse outcomes for women in situations of natural disasters. It is also seen that as women take care of their households, women are in charge of the children and also the cattle, moving fast, moving out of the house along with children takes time. It also is observed that women are in precarious situations because of the culture and gendered norms that are prevalent in the communities. So through all these examples, what we have seen is that women do play a very crucial role in management of natural resources. They have a very special relationship with natural resources. The use of natural resources by women is different than men. They use it for their household consumption, they use it in a sustainable manner, and they use it in a manner which conserves biodiversity. In different parts of the world and in different parts of India, women's knowledge of the local surrounding has come from their daily interactions and experience of working with these resources. The knowledge of forests, the knowledge of non-timber produce, the knowledge of fisheries, the knowledge of gardens, the knowledge of plants that are planted in the backyard gardens is all acquired by women through interaction with nature. Their relationship with nature and their relationship with resources puts them in a special position where they have special knowledge of the resource and they are also dependent on that resource. But that doesn't result in rights. Women don't have equal rights with women over resources, on land rights, on water, on property, or on forest. So there needs a special drive which requires all of us to engage with women to acquire rights. So how can that be done? There have been initiatives where women have been engaged for conservation of biodiversity. Women have been engaged in sustainable livelihood programs. They have been engaged in reduction of carbon emissions because they are the ones who are facing effects of climate change. Women have been also vulnerable in times of natural disaster. So the development programs need to be sensitive to women's position and they need to be aware of what needs women have. This will not happen unless and until there are dialogues directly with women from different communities. Women are not a monolith. Different women from different backgrounds, caste, class, race, ethnicity, socio-economic, geographic background, disabilities have to be reached out to, and we have to listen to them to understand their own opinions and their own expertise. So for any development programs, there are certain measures that need to be done. Most of the times, the extension workers or the field workers believe that if we talk to men, the messages will reach women. But in reality, that never happens. Sometimes, men themselves are not aware of the knowledge that women possess. So it is very crucial that men need to be made more aware of the importance and contribution of women. Involvement of women right from project planning has to be ensured. They can't just be beneficiaries. They have to lead programs. And wherever women have led programs, they have achieved a great amount of, they have achieved very much and they have achieved for themselves and for their communities. Women committee members cannot be just for the sake of having them on the committees. They need to be made signatories to the bank accounts to emphasize their importance of their role. Women need to be in leading positions and in office bearers positions. The very important point is of equal opportunities and equal wages. In most programs we see that though women are doing equal work with women, their wages and their remunerations are not in comparison with men. So it needs to be ensured that women get equal wages and equal opportunities to upgrading their skills. So in this topic, we have seen what relation women have with natural resources and how gender and natural resources are connected with each other. If you want to read more about this, you can definitely refer to the e-text and the learn more section. I hope you've enjoyed this session. Thanks a lot.